ADHD Rewired, episode 544. Since 2014, this has been the podcast for ADHD adults who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and an ADHD certified clinical services provider by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. You can learn about our coaching and accountability groups, our virtual co-working community, and more, all at ADHDrewired.com. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Learn more about our offerings, including our monthly live Q&As, get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter, and more, all at ADHDrewired.com. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. Don't forget to hit subscribe or follow on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired, Coaches Roundtable rendition. This is, we're going to be talking today about our fourth week in our coaching groups, where we talk about routines and like kind of building the foundation that everything else that we are going to learn about planning is kind of built around, because there are all kinds of things that we are doing on a regular basis every day, and with some tracking we can actually know how long a lot of these things take. So we're going to be talking about that. So I'm joined by coaches Kristin Marts and Brian Entler, and as you I'm sure could probably hear in my voice, I'm a bit under the weather today. So let's hopefully the cold medicine hasn't gone too much to my head, and we can have another really, I think, impactful and packed conversation in a short period of time. So Kristin and Brian, hello.
Hello.
Hey. All right. So how have things been going in your groups around conversations around routines?
Oh, routines are always something that seems like people are always excited about it, but also intimidated by it, because how many of us can relate to the statement of, we've tried to do routines in the past and then they inevitably break down and we think, oh no, like there's it's inhibiting us from trying to emotionally invest in doing it again. So people are excited about it, but then we run into that kind of kickback. But I like to bring that right out in the open. Let's make that part of the conversation, because I like, as I always like to say, if our program is 10 weeks long, but if it was 10 months long or 10 years long, we would still have ADHD at the end. And part of the practice is starting routines and then learning how to restart and reboot them after they inevitably break down, and having the resilience. And actually, resiliency is what's coming up in future weeks. But right now, we like to frame it. We start with building, talking about habits and routines, the difference between them. And we frame it in the context of sleep management, nighttime and morning routines, because we like to workshop with real life data and everyone can relate to that. And sleep management is such a huge, huge issue for all ADHD folks. So setting the stage, that's what we do. We talk about habits and routines, and we do it in the context of nighttime routines and morning routines. And a lot of people really like to resonate with this because it relates to everybody. Everybody has a story to tell about their sleep management.
Lots of stories to tell about sleep management. Kristin, how about you? How's your group been responding to?
So my group was super engaged. They were like furiously writing about the whole narrative practice that we do. And I think one of the things that's already coming out as shares from them is like the distinction between, oh, I have trouble falling asleep, not necessarily getting in the bed. Now that I'm setting up routines and trying to practice that, I'm noticing I also have actually going to sleep problems, so it's helping them kind of distinguish that a little bit, it can be very nice, because then you can address medical issues around that sort of thing too. They're also discovering their energy level increasing, even if it's not to the full ideal sleep time they want in the evening. They're starting to notice that they're noticing what they want to put into their bedtime routine, or maybe even evening routine, that helps them in the mornings. So that's, I'm already starting to hear some progress around that. Because yes, we have, half the group sometimes will come in with, that is their main thing, is trying to figure out their sleep.
And in the context of that, I see a lot of light bulbs go off in my section when people we make the intuitive connection between the concept of executive function and sleep and how they are related. And in every situation, in many contexts, we have the tendency to internalize our differences in the way our executive function works as as defects of character or our character quality. We don't have enough willpower to go to sleep when we want to. But I always point out, I was like, that time of day when we're becoming fatigued toward the end of the day, our executive function is going down, down, down. Our ability to actually execute the tasks related to going to sleep. And I'm so guilty of this, but I've come a long way with my sleep management, but I'm still not there. But I always framed it as like, I feel like I forget to go how to go to sleep. I have an epic transition failure where I'm like, oh, it's time to starting my nighttime routine. But I get caught up in a transition. I end up, watching TV and then falling asleep on the couch and waking up with the lights still on at 2 a.m. I've not done that in a long time, but like it's the intuitive connection between the reason we have a hard time going to sleep is because our executive function is decreasing. That's why we need to build systems and routines. Like a lot of people have not yet made that intuitive connection when they start working with us. And I see those light bulbs going off. It's really powerful.
Hey, you know what else is really powerful? Our coaching program. You know what makes that even more powerful is when you sign up during early registration, and we have our second of 3 early registration events this Thursday, May 23rd at 2 p.m. Pacific. That's 5 Eastern. What makes that powerful is the early bird registration discount. You can join us for only $9.99. I'll have more information at the end of this conversation.
Yeah, and I definitely think, for myself too, like sleep, I often refer to as my gravel mountain, right? Like I keep climbing and I keep slipping and I keep getting up and climbing and I keep slipping. And because it is like the EF there's so many like little kind of micro steps involved in that, like getting to bed, that it really can be challenging. And I sort of like catch myself and watch myself like doing my routine. I will literally just get like stuck. Like I'm like standing in the bathroom, like not even knowing what the next step is because I'm just drained. I did recently discover, I made a little tweak to part of my routine that, I definitely struggle with being on my phone because I like to listen to a podcast to help me fall asleep. Because man, if I don't have a podcast on to fall asleep too, like it's like my brain plays podcasts, but it's just all my thoughts, and too many of them. So what was happening is I would set the podcast and then I would go to set this sleep cycle app, which I use to wake up. But in between those two apps, somehow Facebook would get in the way. And so I have on my phone a folder that has audio, and I decided to put the sleep cycle app in the audio folder. So when I exit the podcast app, the sleep cycle app is right there. And like it was just this little tweak, and it made a really big difference. That's part of what we're trying to do in our groups too, is helping people identify the sequence of all of those steps. Because I think when we really kind of look under a microscope of all the sequence of the steps, we can identify where, like, what sucks us into rabbit holes and identify these different inefficiencies. When I first created the exercise where we're really sort of sequencing through time tracking all of the steps of our routines, with all of our exercises, I always sort of trial run them on myself first. And one of the things at the time when I was doing this is I was discovering that about 20 minutes was being like wasted because I kept going back and forth between rooms, between the bathroom and the bedroom, and I'd forget something downstairs. And just by is it a little tedious to walk around with the clipboard and do this stuff? Like, yes, but it's also super eye-opening. And when you realize, oh, I could just like batch everything here, go to the bathroom, everything is in the bathroom, then I'm done in the bathroom, then I make that transition to the room. Like those little tweaks really do go a long way. And I find a lot of our members are finding that too.
I am so reminded, that was one of the things I learned in my season. You said one day, and this is going to get into Brian's, one of his phrases he likes, is every time you pass through a threshold, there's an opportunity for distraction.
That's
These
right.
come together today. And it was like the biggest aha for me. Because I still struggle with my evening routine. I've been trying to use a lot of engineered urgency by planning things early in the morning that gives me more of a why. to get into the bed. So at least I'm getting into the bed. I'm not necessarily tucking away and going to sleep, but I'm getting into the bed at an earlier time. So it's a good start.
What are you finding with your members in terms of this very common sort of cognitive sort of resistance of, but nighttime is when no one bothers me and I love the nighttime. How are you helping like members with sort of wrestling with that, like that on one hand, and on the other hand, also how is not getting enough sleep impacting the rest of your day and in a sense the rest of your life, because it's making everything else harder?
I like to phrase that like, and I know this is not a scientific concept, it's not in the DSM, but I like to frame it in the concept of revenge bedtime procrastination, which is an unofficial term. I know we like to be evidence-based here, but it's a concept we like to work around, where a lot of folks feel that anxiety toward the end of the night where like, I wanted to get more done today and I didn't, and that anxiety interrupts the sleep, or I just want to get the one more thing-itis in so I can feel productive enough to go to sleep. And that actually works to get us counterproductively. And it's like that emotional connection between, oh, it's time to go to sleep, but I'm not ready for this day to be over yet. That's a very, very real thing. And whenever I describe that concept to people who haven't heard it before, I see a whole lot of light bulbs go off. So yeah, that's definitely something to work through. Many of us don't think about it that way. And I also find there's a lot of emotional resistance to it too, because when people think, oh, I have to make a bedtime routine. I mean, I'm an adult. I don't need help going to bed. That seems so silly to me. It feels like, oh, some people feel a little bit vulnerable about it. And I actually had people voice that. I'm like, I feel like there's something wrong with me if I need assistance to do something basic, like we perceive as being basic and going to bed. And in my eyes, I was like, oh, it's time to pull back and let's reimagine, let's re-engineer this, because that is a good inherent in that judgment is this is something I should be able to do without having to put effort into it. That is when we are unconsciously maybe comparing ourselves to other people, maybe comparing ourselves to neurotypical people and using that as our guide for if we're determining there is a should here, how we should be going to bed. Let's back it up and say like we are fundamentally different on a biological level. That's why we need not beat ourselves up about not behaving in the same way. And it may feel like, oh, I don't need help with this, but like maybe we do, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's funny. One, I don't know if I share this with you, with some of the things I've been thinking about around eventually doing a kind of retreat. One of the things I would love to be able to do is have people who would come to the retreat have the option to sign up for bedtime support, which is because like I think about myself when I go to like the ADHD conferences. It's like I really know that I need to get to bed at a reasonable hour. And when you're surrounded by so many ADHDers, their brain is just being bombarded by dopamine and one more thing-itis, and it's like I end up getting to bed way too late, and it's like, how much would it be worth to me to actually like have someone who would say, okay, Eric, you're done for the night. Let's go upstairs. Let's get yourself ready for bed. And like, that would be a really valuable service for me. And so this idea of like, you know what, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Do what works. And that's one of the things we really try to impart on our members is sort of letting go of this judgment that we tend to have about the things that are helpful, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters, what works, right? And I think where we build confidence from is letting go of the judgment and radically accepting what we need and owning it and being actually proud of the fact that this thing works for me. I don't care if it's ridiculous. It works. What else? What else as far as, so we talked about routines.
Well, I wanted to answer that other question because this is one of the hugest, I mentioned a minute ago, it's the hugest struggle for me. And some of the things I've discovered is some of the things that have become kind of aha or just sort of processing as I've been coaching. So one of the things I offer and practice for myself is the idea behind some of that bedtime revenge procrastination concept is the idea of not only not getting interrupted, but not doing something fun for me. So I invite the members to think about, well, what would it be like to schedule 15 minutes of fun for yourself throughout the day? Break that mold of where things are supposed to go during your day. Think about what kind of career you have. Do you have flexibility to change up what your start time is in the evening? That's helped me some. And then the other thing I try to provide is I have learned that I have longer on-ramps. So that transitions. Some people, mainly neurotypicals, I imagine, go, oh, time for bed. Okay, write that last few words of that sentence in, boom, or watch the end of that show in, boom. I can't do that. I need to know, oh, it's time for me to start thinking about going to bed. And then in 15 minutes, I know I'll get a 5-minute warning. And then, yeah. So that's another thought about it on my end. And those are some of the things that I try to offer and have conversations around with them.
Oh, yeah, that's something I discovered when I think I might have been in the season I was adminning for Kristin. I did a whole thing. I'm going to workshop my sleep routine for the whole thing. And I discovered something similar. I called it the speed bump, where I thought, like, you go 100% up until 11 p.m. and then turn the lights off and we're just going to go to sleep. And I realized, actually, no, I have to start slowing my brain down well before that. It's kind of like when you're driving a freight train, you don't wait till you get right up to the station to slam on the brakes. You start braking slowly a couple miles away so you can slowly reduce the energy. I realized my bedtime routine, whether or not I change technically starts at 9. And then I slowly give myself enough time. I reduce stimulus over the time to let my brain naturally come to a stop right around 11. So that's something I discovered. I normally, if it said, oh, you're going to start getting ready for bed for 9, I'd be like, that's way too early. But then I realized, oh, it really isn't. And then it's not even like I have to get in bed and pull the covers on and turn the lights off at 9. It's that's when I turn the TV off. That's when I start turning off the lights in my home. That's when I stop. I don't do any exercise after 9 o'clock, or I only do soothing wind down things. That's when I do my ritual. I'll take my sleepy time, my big mug of sleepy time tea, and take my sleep supplements at 9. I don't wait till I'm trying to actually go to bed to start doing those things. So backing it up ahead of time. But that's something I never would have thought of if I hadn't been really examining it and workshopping it.
And, one of the things that we do too as part of helping our members is not just looking at the sort of structures of the routine, but also looking at what are the thoughts that we're having as we are engaging in that routine. And one of the exercises we do, and we offer our members kind of a choose your own adventure on how to approach it, from writing a sort of a story or a narrative, or they can do it as a storyboard with speech bubbles and thought bubbles, where the idea of, all right, so the alarm goes off to get ready for bed, and our immediate thought is, oh, I don't want to do that, right? Okay, let's capture that thought and then explicitly actually write out, or how do we actually want to respond to that thought now, instead of just going into that automatic, what we have typically done, and we listen to the I don't want to, right? Is how do we sort of override that through one, compassion about those kinds of thoughts, and understanding that those thoughts are those are our habits right now. When the alarm goes off to go to bed and our immediate thought is, I don't wanna, that's a habit. It's a very well-established habit. And we can't just get rid of something that's well-established, but what we can do is make new connections that attach to the old habit so we can build on a new routine.
Wouldn't you agree? It's also, though, we talked about the executive function and how it connects. Our inhibition mechanism is down, drained. So it's not only a habit, it's a impulse. We don't want to think about the consequence of going ahead. No, I want to watch one more episode.
Oh, and the funny thing, it's we talk about thinking about the consequences. Intellectually, I always know my tomorrow self is going to appreciate me going to bed on time. But there is some communication breakdowns between the emotional part, where it's my nighttime self has a really hard time feeling how my tomorrow self is going to feel. And I wish that I had that magic sauce to be okay, I can intellectually know it and feel it, because to me, the only time I'm actually emotionally motivated to get to bed early is when I don't feel good. And I wish that wasn't the case.
I wonder if we offered, it's almost too the nighttime self doesn't give a fuck, basically, about the morning or the tomorrow self. And why, maybe that could be a practice, a journaling prompt. Why could we give the nighttime prompt that would inspire it to cooperate a little more?
It's fascinating when we start to really sort of examine all the things that we do on a regular basis, by really looking at the structures of our routines. That creates the foundation for the rest of our planning, especially with our days and our weeks, which is exactly what we talk about during week 5 in our coaching groups, which we will talk about next week, because we are keeping these short, and we're on a roll here with actually keeping these like in the 20-ish minute range. So go us for being on top of it. Any final thoughts?
Kudos on that segue, Eric. Solid.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go take some more cold medicine, and we will catch you back here next week.
Bye, everybody.
I really do hope that you've been enjoying our Coaches Roundtable series, and it's been giving you some deeper insights around the types of things that we support our coaching members with. I know it seems like summer might be far away, but it's not. But that's why we want to give you the incentive, dear listener, who may be interested in joining our coaching program. We want to incentivize you with an early bird registration discount. You can join us for only $9.99. You have this Thursday, May 23rd at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern, and then your last chance to join us at this amazing early bird discount of only $999 will be on Memorial Day in the U.S., which is on Monday, May 27th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern. So don't miss your chance to invest in your ADHD during this early bird incentive. And after Monday, after Memorial Day, the price is going up, starting at $11.99. And the longer you wait, the more the price will increase. So don't wait, and please don't wait until the day of registration to start getting registered, especially since right now, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, I don't have an assistant right now. So please get your pre-registration materials to me no later than 8 p.m. Central on Wednesday for Thursday's event, and 8 p.m. Sunday for Monday's event. I'll try to process any submissions that come in after that, but I can't guarantee it. Take the next steps. All the details are at the website. Go to coachingrewired.com and get on our interest list, and we will send you all the information you need to complete your pre-registration steps. And we also have a bunch of really great emails queued up when you sign up for that email interest list. And do you work better when someone else is working with you? I know I do. That's why I created Adult Study Hall at adultstudyhall.com, the virtual co-working community for adults with ADHD, with both guided sessions as well as our 24/7 quiet co-working room that I've actually been in a lot lately. Come work with us. Come co-work with us. And this is a great week to join, because this Friday, May 24th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 Eastern, I'll be hosting our monthly Pomodoro dance party. We do this every fourth Friday of the month. Let's work together for 2 50-minute work blocks. And after each work block, I'll be DJ Dopamine, giving our bodies and brains breaks by rewarding each 50-minute work block with a 10-minute dance party. That's 2 50-minute work blocks and 2 10-minute dance parties. Go to adultstudyhall.com, and it's free to try for the first week and only $19.99 a month after that, and there is no long-term commitment. And did you know that the members of our coaching groups and our alumni get access to all of the Adult Study Hall sessions that we have? And if you've been listening to ADHD Rewired for a while and you continue to get value from this podcast, please consider becoming a patron by supporting our Patreon page. As I know I've been sharing in recent weeks that I recently went from 70 hours of paid administrative support to 0. So if you find a value in this podcast and want to ensure that we can continue to create content like this week after week that comes out on a regular basis, your support on Patreon has really never been more critical to our mission. Having a podcast editor for weekly episodes runs a little bit more than $500 a month. Your support can help me hire a new editor, which I really, really need to do. And would also be very helpful as I'm trying to recalibrate some things here at ADHD Rewired so I can continue supporting the ADHD community in a sustainable way. Also, next Tuesday, May 28th, I'll be hosting our monthly coaching call for patrons who give $25 a month or more. We do it at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern, every fourth Tuesday of the month. Go to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon to join us. And as always, sharing is always caring. If you know someone who you think would like this episode, please share it with them. And if you like it and you've liked lots of our episodes and you haven't yet left us a review, please kindly go open your podcast app if it supports reviews, and most podcasts app do. And leave us a review. It really does help it get in front of more earballs. All right, friends, we will catch you back here again soon. Until next time.